You called me up to ask if I'd come along to the Keys. Still had my bags packed from traveling overseas. Was such a long time coming, it's true. Now there's just one thing left to do. Years had passed and feelings pending. The countless times I looked at you. Was high time to stop pretending and make a new breakthrough. High and lonely, dreams will fall and become harder to recall, harder to recall. No, I just couldn't wait. No, I couldn't hardly wait to ride along. Oh, I just couldn't wait. No, I couldn't hardly wait to ride along with you. Couldn't wait till the midnight hour just to turn out the lights, or a message in a bottle that wasn't quite watertight. High and lonely, dreams will fall and become harder to recall, harder to recall. No, I just couldn't wait. No, I couldn't hardly wait to ride along. Oh, I just couldn't wait. No, I couldn't hardly wait to ride along with you. Ride along with you. So I just couldn't wait. No, I couldn't hardly wait to ride along. Oh, I just couldn't wait. No, I couldn't hardly wait to ride along with you. Ride along with you, with you, with you.
iTunes Radio reminds you, Strange Blues, the show of your choice.
Hello and welcome again to the Strange Brew podcast. My name's Jason Barnard and that was Those Pretty Wrongs and Ride Along from their latest LP, Holiday Camp. Those Pretty Wrongs are Jody Stephens, known for being the drummer in Big Star, as well as Luther Russell, who comes from the Freewheelers and is an acclaimed solo artist and producer. This is a fascinating interview with those guys about Those Pretty Wrongs and their time in music. So let's hear my chat with Jody and Luther. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
That Luther?
Yeah. Hi, Jason. Jody's here too. Thanks for having us.
It's my pleasure. You're literally in the middle of a European tour at the minute.
Yeah, we had our first show last night here in Paris, and we have our second here in Paris tonight. And then we go to Newark tomorrow, and we start the UK tour.
And you're just playing live as a duo? Because I think you do that quite a bit, don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, that's how we usually perform. It just seems a little easier and it's have guitar will travel.
Yeah, it's sound checks, load ins are so much easier, but when you only have an acoustic 12 string.
It just works doing the old Simon and Garfunkel setup.
Absolutely. And I know that you have been playing Holiday Camp in its entirety at times. Are you doing that now, or are you mixing things up?
No, we're mixing things up on this tour. But yeah, and then we figured that's the incentive to buy the records is they can hear other things that we do. This guy over here playing drums and whatnot, different things.
It's our 10-year anniversary tour, so it's a sampling of each one of our records.
Be good to ask you about some of those Pretty Wrongs material, starting with Holiday Camp. One of the key songs.
This right here, there's a stack of records sitting right here.
All right, lovely. I'll just pick a few out just to ask you about the background behind writing that material. And first of all, Ride Along.
Oh, yeah, I met my wife. We worked at the same restaurant together, and this was 1974. We were friends. And then as years went along, I'd gone to Europe and actually the Mediterranean and was doing a USO tour and was gone for about 6 weeks. And I got back to Memphis, and Diana called me from Nashville, which is where she was living, and asked if I'd like to. She wanted to drive down to Key West and didn't want to do it alone. Asked if I'd like to go. And I said, sure. So I hopped on a Greyhound bus, went from Memphis to Nashville, and then rode along with Diana to Key West. And that's where our romantic relationship started. And that was 1983. It's about that.
What's the songwriting process for your material?
Oh, Ride Along's a good example of a sort of had this interesting drop D tuning and just really liked in that case, I think we had it sketched out with this interesting guitar figure and this guitar part. I just sent that to Jody, and in that case, he just came up with that lyric based on the story he told you. So in the case of that song, it went that way, where it's gone an opposite way for a song like Paper Cup, where he pretty much had the whole lyric written, the melody itself, when I got sent it lent itself to just a handful of just very simple chords that almost seemed preordained and pre-written, where I would call Paper Cup mostly a Jody tune in that sense. So it's however we can find it. He would disagree, but really there was no other way there was nothing else to do with that melody other than put those 4 chords under it. And it just seemed right. And it seemed very instant. Didn't need any adjusting. I said, how about this? And he was like, yeah. So just to illustrate how different a song can happen.
Because Paper Cup, that's got a real classic 60s pop feel.
It does.
Sometimes the best songs are the simplest.
Yeah, it's true. It's repetitive in that sense. And when we got into Ardent, I remember we were cutting the track. It felt really big and spectorian, and it just seemed right. We agreed on the way to treat we usually do agree on the way to treat these arrangements. When we get in, we say, hey, it'd be cool if this had like big booming piano and this maybe a castanet and stuff like that. So it feels like pretty decided upon by the time we get to fleshing it out sonically.
Yeah, and of course, Mitch Easter appears on Glockenspiel in that song.
You've got quite a number of other artists who've appeared on Holiday Camp, haven't you?
Yeah, Pat Sansone from Wilco did some nice Moog and Mellotron stuff for us, especially on Scream and Always the Rainbow, I think. And then Chris Stamey did
Chris did arrangements for My Brother's string arrangements. And there's a flute and a clarinet as well, which I just thought it'd be nice to have something whimsical. And the song and the chords and Luther's performance, that's how we play off each other. It's cool. It's a great relationship. It just seemed like it lent itself to something whimsical and like flighty flute part and clarinet and some strings. And of course, that was Chris Stamey.
Was there anyone else?
Yeah, there was Felix Hernandez who did bongos on This Painted Sky. local Memphis guy, originally from Puerto Rico. That might be it.
That might be it, yeah. But we build these things from the ground up, and then we'd see what it needs at each step of the way. And we'd let once the foundation of my guitar and his voices and our voices together, for that matter, at least his voice is on there, we can just say, should we just play it as it lays, or should we actually start to adorn it with stuff? And we leave that to just instinct. And so we, even from the first album, because there was always this idea, Jody, I remember him saying, should we really just keep this something we could always perform live? And as it turns out, you can craft a record, but you can also, the songs really survive on their own live the way they are. So it's cool to have both in that sense. Like, we don't feel like we're letting it down when we play it live, just us.
Your soft eyes and soft smile come and go in regimental style. Sharp tongue and sharp wit whittle away at me bit by bit. I guess I'll just keep falling down from your righteous point of view and keep myself on the other side of the cutting edge of you. My heart is a paper cup. Fill it up, fill it up. My heart is a paper cup. Fill it up. A gentle stroke and a telling tug on this leash around my neck. At least I'm not so lonely, being led like a little pet. I guess I've just been sucking up just to keep you pacified and kept myself close to you, not to get jerked aside. My heart is a paper cup. Fill it up, don't tear it up. My heart is a paper cup. Yeah, fill it up. How we look at happiness can be misconstrued. Might be the other side of loneliness, even though my life is screwed. I guess I've just kept patching up from your prickly point of view and tried to keep myself on the other side of the thorny side of you. My heart is a paper cup. Fill it up, don't punch it up. My heart is a paper cup. Yeah, fill it up. I spilled out all my feelings built up inside for you. I tried my best to reconcile, propped up by a glass or two. Now I just think I'll take my leave out to a mountain view. Had my fill of emptiness and the shit I bought into. My heart is a paper cup. I'm gonna fill it up, gonna hold it up. My heart is a paper cup. Yeah, gonna fill it up, fill it up.
The foundation of a great song is that you can play it in different ways and it still stands up. And the material from your self-titled debut album is that example, as you're saying, like Mystery Trip or The Heart.
Thank you. Last night we were finally doing this show, which I would say is the first show. We've played one or two from the other records, but this is the first show where we really gave everything equal airing. And it felt really good to play all the songs. And the songs really do work on their own. You don't have to do anything. It's just two voices and a guitar, and it feels good to play it that way, and it feels big and it feels solid. And yeah, we sound check The Heart, and we intend on doing that. But we did a song called Start Again, which we haven't done since we toured the first album, because with each tour, as you mentioned with Holiday Camp, we always tend to just do that record live. That's what we do. We do that record in sequence, and we just give that record the entire focus. So this is the first tour we've done where we're giving all the records similar focus. What
about Ain't Nobody But Me from Z for Zulu? It feels like on that song everything clicked. It's a great track.
It did.
I did. A friend of mine would call the house, and if we weren't at home and he left a message, he would just say, "Hey, it's Robert, ain't nobody but me." And it would break my heart a little bit because he's a good friend. It's a self-deprecating comment, but it would just break my heart a little bit. And usually lines or what someone says or what you read, if it moves you or makes you joyful or melancholy or breaks your heart a little bit, it's usually a good line for a song or an emotion that needs some expression. That's where that came from. And then it just worked its way through from quite by chance. It went from Ain't Nobody But Me to that self-deprecating sort of comment to I hope there ain't nobody but me in your life. So I don't know. It just worked out. It was just all by chance.
Yeah,
Luther's melodies and stuff.
I remember cutting that, and that was a first take of us. We would track it guitar and drums. And I remember going, do you remember that? And we were going, Zed for Zulu is a very easy album to make compared to the others. And I felt we got that take, we got like, wow, that's it right there. Take one. It's felt perfect. And so we tend to definitely, that's the ideal situation when you just get it. And that was also the first song we completed for, that set off the path for Zed for Zulu. Between the ease of that, being the first song written, the ease of taking it, I think it sounds as fresh as it came about, in a sense. Yeah. That's a cool one.
Life's evolving from a simple child, and I think about it for a while. In truth, I've come to know uncertainty. I call you up, ain't nobody but me. A little help is all I need. A little patch for where I bleed. Maybe a little tenderness could be. I call you up, ain't nobody but me. I've known you all my life, you see. We've had some troubles, but set them free. Let's love each other, just let it be. And all your world, and all your world, and all your world, ain't nobody but me. When I was just the age of teens, I had no voice and had no means. Doors were closed with broken keys. I call you up, ain't nobody but me. I've known you all my life, you see. We've had some troubles, but set them free. Let's love each other, just let it be. In all your world, in all your world, in all your world, ain't nobody but me. If I can't get you on the phone, I hope you're not so quick to say you've torn my page right out of your book. But maybe take a second look. As friends to mend, until then I can pretend. In all your world, 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 ain't nobody but me.
When was that moment where you first met each other and realised that in terms of collaborating on music that things just clicked?
Early on, pretty quick. We were friends for about 20 years. Jody asked me to help him do some stuff in LA for Big Star. So we worked up a set of Jody songs with Big Star, Jody songs with Golden Smog, anything that Jody had done, maybe the odd song written by Alex or Chris. And we got together at my studio to essentially rehearse for this radio thing. And right away, there was definitely a blend. That was just obvious to Jason, or as our partner in the studio, and us. And so it just seemed like a natural, the timbres of our voices did really blend really quickly. And so that was an odd thing because we'd known each other so long and never played music together. So musicians are lazy. They'll do the first good thing that comes along.
It'd be good, Luther, to ask you a little bit about your music before that, because Selected Memories and Anthology is a great collection of
thank you.
Material over about 20 years.
30.
And dates back to when you were in, was it the Boot Heels with Dylan?
That's right, yeah. That's why that collection spans about 30 years, because there's a few demos from the 80s. And yeah, I had a little band, a little high school era band with Jacob Dylan, which was a complete fluke. I was friends with a friend of his, and we started playing music together, this friend of his, Toby, and Jacob started coming around. And he was a good musician, obviously. And with an old family friend of mine on drums, it turned into this because the drummer was a bit older than us, Aaron. He was so good. He ended up going on to play with Moby and different people. And Toby, this mutual friend of mine and Jacob's, ended up being a pretty big engineer, producer, and started the Wallflowers with Jacob. We had this great little unit and started attracting interest, and I made little demos of us. I would set up the 4-track and the band played, and then I just had these demos for years. And then Cheryl, who I met through Jody, Cheryl from Omnivore, expressed interest in them when I can't think she maybe heard one on the Selective Memories, or maybe I sent her. She said, "Oh, this is great," and I said, "Oh, there's more where that came from," and then that's what put that collection out. But yeah, it was a really mature, beyond its years type of little band that I wish had gotten a chance to record, because it was that good. But then we all went our separate ways, and the rest is history.
There's a track on there with you and the Freewheelers, Desdemona.
Oh yeah, wow! That was from a kind of a bit of demos we did towards the end of the band. I just cherry picked a few things I thought, oh, too bad those slipped through the cracks. And that was a cool tune about just walking the boardwalk in Venice, and that's a pretty ripping little tune.
The eye of a slender passerby. hot dogs, see the city and hot dogs. We go get ourselves a tasty treat. We catch the eye of every passerby. My body's waving, waving in the heat. I say, what's your name? And she says, Desdemona. And my heart just skips a beat, yeah. Desdemona, 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 Desdemona. I love you once, I'll even love you twice. Hey Desdemona, wouldn't that be nice? Hey Desdemona. I wanna say, hey Desdemona, will you be with only me tonight? I wanna mess around, I wanna hang around. I wanna know if that would be alright. But as I turn, I notice I've been burned, because she disappears from sight, yeah. Desdemona, Desdemona, Desdemona. Desdemona, Desdemona, hey, Desdemona. I love you once, I'll even love you twice. Hey, Desdemona, wouldn't that be nice? Hey, Desdemona. Hey, Desdemona.
Jody, I've been listening to some of the pre-Big Star material recently, like Ice Water and what was labelled as Rock City. Where do those two fit in? Was it that Ice Water was Chris's band, that you were in pre-Big Star, and it was Rock City a studio project?
Ice Water, and the foundation of that, I think, was Chris Bell and Steve Ray. He was a drummer, he played guitar, and a singer, and he and Chris had been playing together. He was leaving for university. Chris and Andy were looking for a drummer, and Andy and I reconnected. I played drums in the Memphis State production of Hair. So Andy came to see that, and we reconnected, and he invited me along to go to a jam session at Chris Bell's parents' back house, and Steve Ray was there. And the first time I walked into the studio was Chris and Steve Ray were working on one of the Ice Water songs that Steve was singing. And then, yeah, I understand that the Rock City thing was a project that would give Chris some production experience in the studio, and included songs that he'd written with Tom Eubanks, and Terry Manning was a part of that. But yeah, it was a nice opportunity to focus on some songs and do some recording, because you go from playing cover material, at least that's what I'd been doing, British Invasion, and of course some Stax thing. I was in a soul band for a little bit with my brother Jimmy. So you go from pretty much having drum parts already written for you to having to create parts. It was a bit unnerving at first, and then But you just relax and let whatever experience you have formulate ideas and just play the way you feel it. And that's what I've always done with a little bit of composition. One really nice thing about coming up under John Fry and his mentorship at Ardent was that we had the studio and we could record songs and then have a listen and think, and more easily do a bit of composition there, especially with my drum parts. And I'm sure, I know Chris spent hours and hours, his guitar and amp and different processing to get those beautiful melodies that he got and those distinctive guitar sounds. And so, yeah, we were lucky there. And having those two projects that preceded Big Star. Out of Rock City came the track for My Life Is Right. And that was cut prior to Alex joining the band, really. And I'm assuming Alex didn't overdub there and vocal. It's the same track. It's that sort of learning and experience process that you go through to get to where you want to be. And actually, the Rock City record's pretty good. It sounds good, and yeah.
Once I walked a lonely road. I had no one to share my load. But then you came and showed the way. And now I hope you're here to stay. You give me life. You are my hey. You give me life. And that's right. You give me life. You are my hey. You give me life. And that's right. So right. My life is right. Lonely days of uncertainty, they disappear when you're near me. When you're around, my life's worthwhile. And now I long to see you smile. You give me life. You are my hey. You give me life. And that's right. You give me life. You are my hey. You give me life. And that's right. So right. So right. So right. My life is right. My life is right. My life is right. Once I walked a lonely road. I had no one to share my love. But then you came and showed the way. And now I hope you're here to stay. You give me life. You are my hey. You give me life. And that's right. You give me life. You are my hey. You give me life. And that's right. So right. My life is right. My life is right.
Alex added into the group, it created that magic between Alex and Chris and all you guys in the group.
But yeah, the chemistry really came together when Alex joined the band. It's just hard to explain. I think Rock City was a collection of guys, and then Alex joins, and we were Big Star. We were, I don't know, that chemistry
And
that just
Andy.
clicked.
Yeah.
And Andy, of course. I'd look around at those three other guys and just realize how really lucky I was to be a part of this. And it felt, just being in the presence of those three guys, it felt like something really special. Just like playing with Luther, I think a musical relationship is something special. Yeah, I don't know. It's the reason I'm a musician and that I play music, now write music, is that bond and that sense of belonging that kind of drives me and keeps me at it. Being in touch with the audience last night was just amazing. And being in touch with people like that, the opportunity that Luther and I have through having written these songs and the years of experience that we've had prior to joining up, and now with the decade-long relationship we've had with those Pretty Wrongs.
And then now we know how to fly it, kind of thing. We've gone through our actual training and stuff. So it was, whoa. When we first came up with the first record, it was, let's just get this record done and see what we got. Let's not think too hard. Let's try not to overthink it and try to lean into the chemistry, lean into the passion, which is the same thing he's talking about. Like Big Star, they did have a lot of passion. That's why there was like some intense moments in that band, because you can sense that they were passionate. That's why there's holes in that guitar, because there was passion.
The songs we come up with together already have some credibility with us. It's not our trying to do anything. It's that this is what we do, and this is what comes from our experience and emotions. Yeah. And even, I need to go back to Paper Cup. It's not a biographical or an autobiographical song. It's what I experienced walking into a store one day. It's basically spousal verbal abuse, and with 2 or 3 couples that I saw. And it's one, it called to mind the song Lucky Guy, because I have a great relationship with my wife. And then 2, it was certainly the inspiration for Paper Cup, seeing these broken relationships and how people mistreat each other at times.
But the same token, if he comes to me with a song about a penguin, I just roll with it.
Yeah,
because who am I to judge? You know what I mean?
We have a song called Patagonia that's just a silly little number. We recorded, but I don't think it hasn't really seen the light of day.
But the thing is, you can't just. Things are coming from where people are feeling at the time, and they mean something. And yes, Paper Cup is an argument in a Walgreens, but it's hard to say, because I'm a big believer in we don't actually know what we're writing about till many years from now, because I have an entire album that I thought at the time I was writing about an ex, and it turned out it was not. It was about a new relationship. But I couldn't tell that till 10 years later that I was not at all writing about my ex. That all that stuff below the surface that we just can't key into at the time. So you never know. And you don't want to think about it either.
Jody, how much were you writing in the 70s? Because there was For You that was eventually released on Third. How has that developed until today?
Not much while I was in Big Star. Andy Hummel and said, looking to learn how to play guitar or just express that. And Andy said, great, you can have this guitar. It was a Yamaha acoustic that had belonged to Chris Bell. He said, here, you could just have this. And it had 4 holes in it. And it's a special guitar. At the time,
it's on 13, right?
Yeah, it didn't have that history and the weight that it has now. But and Alex showed me some chords. So I just put some chords together and created a melody and came up with For You. And that's pretty much the first song I ever wrote. And
a good one.
And then subsequent to that, I have a writer's credit on Daisy Glaze on Radio City. And I think the song was incomplete, and the 3 of us sat down and finished it. So we all got credit. But I left Big Star, and then Van Duren and I got together and co-wrote some songs. But really, we didn't have the resources or anything, or the real focus. We wrote some cool songs. There's a song called Andy Please that's a cool song. And then, of course, Van went on to do a couple of records that are stellar records. And I did some writing with someone else. It's that process that you go through. I think there's some good things there, but nothing was ever fully realized until Luther came along. That's when songwriting really became a thing for me.
Jody, right off the bat, was coming up with golden stuff, great stuff. I kind of tapped him on the shoulder about it, really just based on, I thought, if anyone who could write For You, that's just a great song. So there's no way that's not still lurking. And he'd written a couple other great songs too. Fear of Falling with Gary Louris, and February's Quiet's a great song. And the poetry was, I think, there. And then he got me with, we wrote something, what was it? We wrote a song that was a B-side, but he had put this phrase, "those pretty wrongs," in it. I thought, man, where did he come up with that? And I said, Jody, where'd you come up with that? And he said, oh, that's Shakespeare. So I went, oh, okay, maybe I got a little too excited, but we ended up using that for our band name. But anyone who could take Shakespeare and just toss it in, I thought, he's got something. He had something on me.
Sometimes I can't help but worship you. I love you and all the things that you do. I thought I'd sit and write this song just for you, to let you know that I am thinking of you. And when I come home so cold at night, you'll have the fireplace burning bright. Thoughts of how it's going to be, and how I'll spend those cold, cold nights warmed by you. And in these autumn days I wander through the leaves, thinking of those winter nights I'll spend with you. And when I come home so cold at night, you'll have the fireplace burning bright. Thoughts of how it's going to be, and how I'll spend those cold, cold nights warmed by you.
Luther, you've got incredible songwriters back in your family. Jody, obviously been around Big Star. You've been around some amazing songwriters. Being around great songwriters, you start to pick up hooks and...
Definitely. If you take a look at, like in sports, if someone comes from a sports family, someone who... I'm a big fan of the Rams, and right now our defensive coordinator is this guy, Chris Shula, but his grandfather was Don Shula, who was like the greatest coach, had a perfect season in the early 70s. You're around it, you could just identify things. If they're constantly brought up to you by your family or constantly brought up to you by the people around you. And that's a really great point, because Jody's sitting next to me and I'm just going, that's good. Stop and take a second look at what you just wrote there. That's pretty good. And here's why. He can say, okay, it's a little bit of confirmation. You start getting confirmation on top of confirmation. You realize this guy's telling me I'm a songwriter. I've been around songwriters. His grandfather was a songwriter. Maybe I'm a songwriter. If you start believing it, then you start doing it.
That helps. The other point to make is writing lyrics, and Luther probably goes through this too, is for a verse, I might get a verse right off the bat. I might get a line and then write 10 other lines, and none of which work, that serve the emotion that I want. Or you just ask yourself, do I feel anything from this? And then you could write 20 lines to get a 4-line verse after just looking at things. But it's still it's like climbing a mountain. You have to take those steps to get to the top, or to arrive where you want to be. And that's just part of the process. And you can't... Luther's a great cheerleader. And the big nemesis in really life itself is self-doubt. And once you start gaining a little bit of confidence and you have a cheerleader like Luther, things get easier, because it's not like all of a sudden I start writing better lyrics. but it's all of a sudden, it's okay to fail. It's okay to write a line that's not any good, because it's probably going to get you to where you want to be.
No, and it's good to make him or him to make me defend what, I'll say, are you sure you want to say it that way? We could always say it this way. Sometimes he'll say, no, you're right. And sometimes he'll say, no, I like it this way. So great, you defended it. It's strong. Let's move on.
I think Luther told me the story of John Lennon talking to George Harrison, and the advice he gave him songwriting was, whatever you start, finish it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's any good or not. It'll still
get used to finishing.
Get used to finishing, and that's key, because I can get something complete, and then I'll go back and start tweaking a little bit, or we will tweak together, get it to where we want it to be. I talk about this, the talent you really need to have being an artist or musician or any kind of creative thing is the talent to engage. So that's what we look for.
I do have to say that I wish I'd heard that Lennon advice to George Harrison years ago, but I only heard it quite recently. That's about the best advice you could give anybody, not just in songwriting, but anything, if their endeavor as a journalist, or to just get used to the idea of finishing. Then you can figure out what the hell it is you have. I think that is why George Harrison became a great songwriter, because I think John gave him the permission to understand that to fail, the permission to fail.
Yeah.
You're going to figure it out pretty quick when you're standing next to Lennon and McCartney. It's osmosis. You pick it up as you go along, for sure. But it never stops. We're writing right now for a fourth record, and we're in that phase of it's starting to shape up, and we're starting to learn to fly what we built. We don't know what it's going to turn out to be, but it's the best part of the process, because you're just like, there's that possibility there.
It must also be easier, whether it's you guys in a duo or going back to Big Star, in terms of when another member of the band or one of you guys presents a song and there's some magic in it. It must make it easier to arrange the song and recording it.
I think so. Take last night, because we've been working on these new songs, as I say. So this is the first time we've been able to come together and because we're going to have a recording session at Abbey Road soon. We're picking a song or two to do. And we sound check yesterday was the first time we said, hey, let's actually run through two of these songs. One of them that we're working on, you can just sense that we got this thing by the scruff of its neck. This is going to be something. There's enough evidence. There's enough there. It makes you feel, and that's exactly what you're talking about, because you happen to catch us. The morning after we were starting to feel that process again, we're like, hey, I think this has the makings. We couldn't have known until we came together to actually test drive it a little bit.
You have to feel pretty good about them if we're going to go into Abbey Road and record them with John Leckie.
Sure.
Again, first and foremost,
we're telling ourselves that.
It has to engage us. And then if it engages us, then we have a lot of confidence in how other people will react.
You set these tests for yourself because, for instance, we have to put down a voice memo or two for John as soon as possible, really, of us actually just legitimately performing these songs.
Can you tell me a bit more about Brother Oh Brother, which is also from Holiday Camp?
Yeah, it's my younger brother, David, passed away a few years ago. His last couple of years, it was a challenge for him. He was a big guy. He was like 6'4", 300 pounds. He'd gotten hepatitis somehow. And some of his life, he was a really smart guy, but he made some bad decisions. It was before there's pretty much a cure for it now, which is pretty amazing. And his lung cavity would fill up with fluid. 18 pints is what they drew off once. And the weight, and he would stand up and shuffle and make his way to the car, and I could take him to the doctors. But it was perseverance, and it was just about his struggle and how he persevered and got through it, but also about the fact that there's a line, your invisibility got in the way of it, of life, and it just, people at times feel like they're invincible and do things, and only to discover too late that they aren't invincible. That's what that's about.
I'll comfort you, my brother. You inspire me with your will. No matter just how slowly you still push to climb the hill. All along you knew so well the challenge and the sight, to figure out the way to peace with subtlety and might. Arm in arm, if not eye to eye, we didn't fit like a glove, but we found common ground between us and worked it out with love. Brother, my brother, this song is for you and all those that loved you and helped to see you through. Life, oh this life, you had a taste of it, but your invincibility got in the way of it. Arm in arm, if not eye to eye, we didn't fit like a glove, but we found common ground between us. We found common ground between us and worked it out with love. La 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 didn't fit like a glove, but we found common ground between us. 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 We found common ground between us and worked it out with love.
There's a lot of stuff going on in terms of those pretty wrongs, as you say. Jody, I think coming back to the UK to do the Music of Big Star dates, it must be like a jigsaw trying to pencil everything in and all the live shows and the recording.
It's all just fallen into place nicely. I've never had to say, oh, Luther and I have dates, or there's something offered to Luther and me. I don't have to say, oh, I've got Big Star date. It just, everything seems to have fallen into place. And the Big Star things, we're featuring Radio City this time out, and it's all just worked. There have been a couple that Mike Mills had his baseball project, the band. So then John Stewart joined us and plays with Pat and Wilco, and that worked out. But yeah, it's like playing with Luther and a good friend. And I've known Luther since the 90s. I've known Mike Mills since 1987 when I first met Mike. And then REM recorded at Arden Studios in 88. And John Auer, I met through Gary Gershik Geffen, the same guy that introduced me to Luther. So I've known John since 91. Chris Damey I've known for a long time. And Pat was new, but I was introduced to Pat he did a cover of You and Your Sister and Chris Bell's song, and it was just so moving. And then Pat was incorporated into the Big Star third sort of cast at some point. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Luther and those four guys. And they're great relationships and the bonds and all that. We just like Luther and I walk into these songs with the right spirit. This quintet walks into the songs with the right spirit. Yeah, it's a cool relationship.
We don't stress the Pretty Wrongs from the get-go. We don't stress too hard, and that's probably why the schedules never clash too much, because we said from the outset, let's just do this as long as it's fun and it's not. And being a long distance thing, that kind of helps, because familiarity breeds contempt and all that stuff. It's that we don't go through that. We just make music and let the chips fall. We take our time, and
that's the key. Is we don't have to sit across from each other and writing a song, although now we're getting together to bring a song more into focus. And it gives us both time to capture those things out of the air or out of what we read or a conversation, and then piece these ideas of a song together that means something to us. It really is capturing moments of thoughts that had some impact on you, whether it's happy, sad, or whatever. Or Robert, our friend, leaving Ain't Nobody But Me, and realizing that that's a good moment and good emotion for a song. And that comes more easily to me as long as I'm aware and listening to the universe, so to speak.
it's true.
It's much easier for me to come up with lyrics than sitting across from each other and having to write lyrics.
Yeah, you keep your antenna up.
Yeah. Lyrics on demand, I'm not very good at.
Yeah, my grandfather used to carry around famously, and this is not an anomaly, but in the old days of songwriting, the 40s, the 50s, he carried around a notebook, and just anything he heard, any conversation, any phrase, he would write it down in the little notebook and think, that's something, I could do something with that.
That's the key, is writing it down.
That's what I do too. You'll hear something go, that'll make a good title, or that'll make a good phrase. And Ain't Nobody But Me is a really great example, because it's like there was a lot wrapped up in that. If you knew Robert, if you knew why he knows Robert, if you know what Robert means to him, if you know what kind of a self-effacing guy he is, if you ever meet him, you'd understand that phrase coming out of that man is a song. It's a song.
Yeah.
Straight up. And if you don't write that song, it's like almost worse than if it's not giving it that psychic space would be a shame.
We've focused quite a lot, rightly, on the magic of songwriting in a way. Jody, my final question is just in relating to your drumming style, which isn't overly showy. You only seem to play when you need to play, even on a more complicated track or My Soul. You've got changes, different time signatures. You still only play when you need to. Is that something that you're very conscious of doing?
Pretty much. I don't know. Early on, I always figured I'd never be a great technical drummer. So I had to develop some sort of character. And given that, sort of composition came into play and what serves the song. And it's all dictated by, for Those Pretty Wrongs, how Luther was playing a guitar part and dictated. We were sitting in Arden's studio, and all of a sudden I was just playing this part. It was nothing like I thought it was going to be. But in Big Star, you have
Jody never plays what I think it'll be.
On My Soul, you have Alex with that opening line, and you just try to support that energy and that effort. And I don't know, all those things, that space between number one record and Radio City. I got a new drum kit, and I changed sticks, and I had listened to other things, and I played snare drum in junior high school. Some flams and flamadiddles or whatever kind of came into play, and it's this interplay between snare and bass drum. Or I tried to incorporate the same thing with September Girls. The intro to that song is inspiring. So that's what excites your emotion, and that's when those years, I didn't have years of experience during On My Soul, not like I have now, but that was just that youthful. It's almost, if you could call a drum part a celebration, that's what that drum part is.
Yeah, when you have a groove too, that's something you can't really teach, a sense of groove. It's the same way you can't really teach. If you go to school for music, you can't learn how to write a hook. You can't learn how to have a groove. That's an innate feel.
It's innate, and it's input through experience and what you've heard. back to songwriting and stuff, there's music you can listen to that I do from time to time, and it opens a portal. You don't rip the song or anything, but all of a sudden it frees your brain to create something else.
Funny though, because you asked about his drumming, but I immediately thought about how it's still such a big part of songwriting, because I play drums too, and it's like there's a rhythmic thing that the more understanding of groove and rhythm you have, I still say, and especially with writing lyrics and stuff, the better songwriter you're going to be. There's more possibilities. The more that you can understand that maybe a phrase you want to say, you think, oh, I can't really say that because in my head it sounds great, but I can't put it on paper. But if you have an innate sense of rhythm, it actually can fit.
The other thing that we're lucky with is I'm lucky in that I have Luther in support. And what Luther plays, how he plays it, in harmonies and all that, it makes my performance 5 times better. And it's the same with Big Star. It was those parts, like Andy Hummel's bass parts, just killer. Mike Mills commented on them because he was digging into them for Radio City. And I don't know that Andy really gets his due in terms of that, because it's just awesome. And then, of course, Alex's guitar parts, we all know, and certainly Luther's guitar parts. I'm adding to something that's already pretty awesome. And so it just makes me sound better.
Andy strikes me, and you can even answer this, but he strikes me as someone, I get a lot of confidence from his playing.
Yeah.
He didn't seem like a guy to worry about too much. Yeah. Is that right?
You're both, no, not self-doubt, but you're both thoughtful. You don't play standard. Somebody once said about Alex's guitar playing is that he takes vanilla chords and makes them colorful. And that's what you certainly do as well. And Andy's playing is just that. I mean, and same with Luther, melodic content and rhythmic content and the emotion of a song like 13 sort of rocking back and forth. It's, if he had just done a standard, you wouldn't be hearing 13 in the same way that you hear it.
Yeah, the bass kind of makes it.
Yeah, it would have made it a bit more expected. All these parts make something unique. Yeah. And if Andy's part had just been an average bass part, 13 wouldn't have been as unique in the way it strikes you.
No, we modeled that when we did Lucky Guy, I remember, which was our first recording. Actually, we did together. We said we got to put bass on this, and we got a Hofner, and I remember just us both agreeing. There was a feeling of, hey, let's just follow the template of whatever Andy did for 13, because the rock back and forth on it, because it's just going to feel right for this song, and it really was. We just followed that lead in a weird way. And yeah, do you remember that? That was pretty cool. Of course, and there was a definite feeling. There was a ghost there in that sense of, hey, man, this is the way to approach this. There's no other way to approach it. It's right. And it worked out right.
Absolutely fascinating. And there's been quite a lot of themes of what we've discussed today. The chemistry between artists, the songwriting, and how the chemistry in terms of the playing your instruments gel together, and it's certainly the case with those Pretty Wrongs. Thank you very much, Jody, and thank you very much, Luther. It's been a pleasure to talk to both of you.
Thank you, Jason.
Likewise, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for setting it up.
Thank
you. Bye-bye, man.
trying to see you down above.
Thank you for listening to the Strange Brew podcast. We've been around for over 15 years now, and keeping the back catalogue up means fees are increasing over time. If you're able to donate, that would be greatly appreciated via the Buy Me a Coffee button on thestrangebrew.co.uk. Thank you.